What if I told you that the life you're living right now, with all its limitations, struggles, and frustrations, isn't actually real? Not in the way you think it is, at least. What if everything you've accepted as unchangeable truth, your financial situation, your relationships, the opportunities that seem to always go to someone else, is nothing more than a projection, a hologram created by invisible patterns you've been unconsciously feeding for years? I know that sounds radical, maybe even impossible. But stay with me here, because what you're about to discover might completely transform the way you see yourself and the world around you. This isn't some new age fantasy or wishful thinking. This is grounded in the profound work of one of the most fascinating minds in metaphysical history, a woman who cracked the code of manifestation long before it became a buzzword, long before social media influencers started talking about vision boards and morning routines. Florence Scovel Shinn spent decades studying something that most people never even question: the relationship between our inner world and our outer reality. And what she discovered was nothing short of revolutionary. She found that consciousness isn't just sitting back, passively watching life unfold like a spectator at a movie theater. No, consciousness is the director, the screenwriter, and the producer all rolled into one. We're not observing reality. We're actively constructing it, frame by frame, thought by thought, belief by belief. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, here's where this gets deeply personal and maybe a little uncomfortable. Has this ever happened to you? You believe something so deeply, maybe that money is hard to come by, or that success is for other people, not you. And then your life seems to prove you right, over and over again. You look around and think, see, I knew it. This is just how things are for me. But what if that's not truth? What if that's just confirmation of a pattern you unknowingly programmed into the fabric of your reality years ago? Shinn understood something that most people miss entirely. We're living inside a mirror. Everything we see out there is actually a perfect reflection of what's happening in here, in the depths of our consciousness, in the beliefs we've accepted without question, in the stories we've been telling ourselves since childhood. The external world isn't causing your experience. Your internal world is generating it, projecting it outward like a movie playing on the screen of physical reality. And if that's true, if reality is truly this malleable, this responsive to consciousness, then everything changes. Because it means the invisible walls you've been bumping up against your entire life were never real in the first place. They were just thought patterns that hardened into what you mistook for unchangeable facts. What you're about to learn is how to recognize these patterns, how to dissolve them, and most importantly, how to replace them with something entirely new, something that actually reflects who you want to become, rather than who you've been conditioned to believe you are. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics behind this process changes everything. Shinn discovered something that sounds almost too simple to be true, yet its implications are staggering. She realized we're constantly interacting with what she called an informational field. Think of it as an invisible matrix, a meeting point where your thoughts and physical matter intersect and communicate. This field isn't somewhere far away in some mystical dimension. It's right here, right now, responding to every belief you hold, every assumption you make about yourself and your life. Here's the hidden truth that most people never grasp. Everything you've been conditioned to accept as solid, unchangeable reality is actually just data you've been feeding into this field. The job that never seems to work out, the relationships that follow the same painful pattern, the financial ceiling you can't seem to break through. These aren't cosmic punishments or bad luck. They're reflections. Perfect mirrors showing you back exactly what you've unconsciously programmed into this field through years of repeated thoughts, inherited beliefs, and unquestioned assumptions. This is where the real transformation begins to reveal itself. Around the same time Shinn was unraveling these mysteries, another visionary named Neville Goddard was approaching the same truth from a completely different angle. Goddard didn't speak about consciousness the way psychologists do. He spoke about assumption, about the raw power of believing something is already true before you see any evidence of it. And what he discovered aligns perfectly with Shinn's work. Your external world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match your internal mental state. If this resonated with you, make sure to subscribe. I create content for people like you who are ready to understand how consciousness actually works and use it to transform their reality. Think about the impact of that for a moment. You're not trying to force the universe to give you what you want. You're not begging or manifesting or visualizing yourself into exhaustion. You're simply shifting the frequency of your internal assumption, and reality, that informational field Shinn talked about, automatically adjusts to match it. It's like tuning a radio. You don't create the station, you just change the dial, and suddenly you're receiving a completely different broadcast. But here's what makes this even more fascinating. Goddard proved that transformation doesn't require years of therapy, complicated rituals, or some secret knowledge only available to spiritual masters. When you repeat a thought with genuine emotional conviction, not just mechanically, but with real feeling behind it, something profound begins to happen. The boundaries between your inner world and outer reality start to dissolve. What was once in here begins showing up out there. The journey from thought to manifestation collapses into something immediate, something tangible. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about recognizing that the thoughts you've been repeating your entire life have been building your current reality brick by brick. And if repetition created the walls you're living within, repetition can dismantle them and construct something entirely different. Every decision you make, every belief you accept, every story you tell yourself is sending information into that field. And that field is listening, recording, and reflecting it all back to you as your lived experience. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to shift," if this is starting to click for you. Because what comes next is where we move from understanding to actual practice, where the revelations become something you can use starting tonight. And this is where the hidden truth becomes undeniable. Because if consciousness truly shapes our experience, and if repetition can reprogram the deepest patterns within that consciousness, then we're looking at something far more powerful than positive thinking or wishful hoping. We're talking about a transformation mechanism that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries, something ancient traditions understood intuitively, but that modern science is only now beginning to validate. Think about it for a moment. Buddhist monks have chanted mantras thousands upon thousands of times throughout history. Christian mystics repeated prayers with unwavering devotion. Islamic practitioners speak sacred phrases during their daily rituals. Indigenous cultures across every continent used repetition as a cornerstone of their spiritual practices. Were all these civilizations simply wasting their time on superstition? Or did they tap into something fundamental about how consciousness operates, something that goes beyond cultural beliefs and touches the very fabric of how the mind interfaces with reality? The answer reveals itself when you understand what repetition actually does to your brain. This isn't mysticism anymore. This is neuroscience. When you repeat an affirmation 100 times with focused attention and genuine emotional conviction, you're not just saying words into empty space. You're triggering a cascade of neurological changes at the cellular level. Specific networks in your brain begin firing together in patterns they've never formed before. And here's where it gets fascinating. Neuroscience has confirmed something called Hebbian learning, neurons that fire together, wire together. What does that mean for you? It means the idea you're repeating is literally being encoded into your mental framework. It's moving from being just a thought floating through your awareness to becoming an accepted, integrated part of your internal reality. You're not trying to convince yourself of something. You're actually rewiring the neural pathways that determine what you perceive as possible, what you believe you deserve, what you automatically expect from life. The impact of this process goes deeper than most people realize. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience, filled with emotion, and something that's actually happening in physical reality. When you repeat an affirmation with real feeling behind it, not mechanically, but with the sensation that it's already true, your mind begins treating that statement as fact. The resistance that normally says, "But that's not who I am," or "That's not how things work for me," starts to dissolve because your consciousness is receiving a new set of instructions, a new operating system. This is the journey from limitation to possibility compressed into a single practice. Every time you repeat that affirmation with conviction, you're taking a sledgehammer to the invisible walls that have been defining your reality. You're not fighting against who you are. You're recognizing that who you've been was just a collection of repeated thoughts that hardened into identity. And if those thoughts created one version of you, different thoughts repeated with the same intensity can create something entirely new. Behind the scenes of your everyday awareness, your subconscious mind is always listening, always absorbing, always shaping your reality based on whatever messages you send it most frequently. For most people, those messages have been negative, limiting, inherited from parents, teachers, society, and painful experiences. But when you consciously choose what you repeat, when you decide what gets wired into your neural networks, you become the architect instead of the passive resident of your own mind. Drop a comment saying, "I'm reprogramming now," if you're beginning to see how this applies to your own life. Because what we're about to explore is the exact method that brings all of this theory into practice. And here's where everything we've talked about becomes intensely personal. Because every single limitation you're currently accepting as unchangeable reality, the financial ceiling you can't seem to break through, the relationships that follow the same painful pattern, the opportunities that always seem to go to someone else, none of these were etched into stone at your birth. They were programmed into your consciousness through repetition. Someone, somewhere along your journey, told you that making money is hard, that success requires sacrifice, that you're not the type of person who gets lucky, breaks. And they didn't just say it once, they repeated it. Your parents said it, your teachers reinforced it, society broadcasted it, and painful experiences seemed to confirm it until these beliefs became invisible walls that you stopped questioning altogether. But here's the revelation that changes the entire game. If those limitations were installed through repetition, they can be uninstalled and replaced through the exact same mechanism. The difference now is that you're doing it. Consciously, deliberately, with full awareness of what you're creating. You're no longer a passive receiver absorbing whatever programming gets thrown at you. You become the one making decisions about what gets wired into your consciousness. This is where theory transforms into practice, where understanding becomes tangible action. For 7 consecutive nights, you're going to engage in something deceptively simple, yet profoundly powerful. You'll set aside a quiet moment. Could be before bed, early morning, whenever you can be alone with your thoughts without interruption. During this time, you're going to repeat a single affirmation 100 times out loud. Not silently in your head, but spoken audibly into the space around you. There's a reason for this specificity. When you speak something out loud, you're engaging multiple senses simultaneously. You hear your own voice declaring this new reality, and that auditory component creates a stronger imprint on your consciousness than silent thought ever could. You're essentially broadcasting a signal, announcing to the informational field and to your own subconscious mind that a shift is taking place. The vibration of your voice, the physical act of forming words, the sound waves moving through the air, all of this compounds the impact of what you're programming. The affirmation itself requires careful consideration. This isn't about copying something that sounds nice or using a phrase because someone else recommended it. It needs to resonate deeply with what you genuinely want to transform in your life. Maybe it's "abundance flows to me effortlessly," or "I am worthy of extraordinary success," or "My life transforms for the better every single day." Whatever phrase you choose should feel significant, aligned with a desire that's been waiting beneath the surface for permission to become real. Your environment matters more than you might think. Find a space where you can be relaxed, where your body isn't tense or distracted. Take a few deep breaths before you begin. Let your shoulders drop. Release the tension you've been carrying. This relaxed state is crucial because it lowers the mental resistance that normally guards against new information entering your subconscious. When you're calm and open, the doors to deeper transformation swing wide. Now here's where most people derail themselves, and this distinction separates those who experience genuine shifts from those who give up after a few half-hearted attempts. The mind doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to the energy, the conviction, the genuine feeling behind those words. If you're reciting mechanically, like you're reading a grocery list, you're just moving your mouth. Nothing shifts, nothing changes. But when you repeat with real emotional involvement, when you feel each word as if it's already an undeniable truth, that's when the breakthrough happens. Type, "I feel this shift" in the comments if you're ready to commit to these 7 nights, because what happens after you complete this practice is where reality itself begins to rearrange. And this is where most people unknowingly sabotage everything they've just created. Because after you complete those 100 repetitions, after you've spent 20 or 30 minutes rewiring your consciousness with focused intention, there's an overwhelming temptation to immediately start analyzing. Did it work? Do I feel different? Should I check if anything's changed? This impulse to monitor, to control, to obsessively watch for proof, it's the kiss of death for transformation. Here's the hidden truth about how consciousness operates. Excessive conscious control actually interferes with the mind's natural creative processes. When you grip too tightly, when you're constantly checking to see if the new pattern has taken hold, you're sending a contradictory signal to your subconscious. You're essentially saying, "I don't really believe this yet," even though you just spent significant time and energy programming the opposite. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every few hours to see if it's sprouted. The constant interference prevents the very growth you're trying to create. The release is just as important as the repetition itself. Once you've completed your 100 affirmations, you stop. Just stop. Don't analyze what happened. Don't sit there mentally scanning your body or your thoughts, looking for evidence of change. Don't start questioning whether you did it right or if you felt it deeply enough. This surrender, this letting go of the need to see immediate proof, communicates something profound to the deepest levels of your consciousness. It says, "This is already done, already integrated, already real." You're operating from certainty rather than doubt, from acceptance rather than desperation. Think about how anything organic grows. Nature doesn't work through force or constant monitoring. There's a natural unfolding that happens when you get out of its way. The same principle applies to consciousness. You plant the new pattern through repetition, and then you create space for it to take root and reshape your reality. The transformation happens in that gap between doing and checking, between planting and harvesting. Now, what happens after you've committed to this 7-night journey is where things become genuinely fascinating, almost eerie in their precision. The people who've actually followed through with this practice report experiences that feel orchestrated, as if reality itself is responding to their new frequency. Some notice shifts within just the first few days. An unexpected message from someone they hadn't heard from in years. A strange invitation that opens a door they didn't even know existed. Little moments that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidence. Those focusing on prosperity often report the most intriguing stories. Money showing up in unexpected ways. A forgotten refund, an out-of-the-blue freelance opportunity, even finding cash they'd tucked away and forgotten about. It's not always dramatic windfalls, but there's this undeniable pattern of resources flowing more easily, as if invisible obstacles have been quietly removed from the path. People working on confidence or clarity describe something equally powerful, a sudden surge of motivation to take action on things they'd been procrastinating on for months. That internal resistance that kept them paralyzed simply dissolves by the end of the 7 nights. Many describe it as an internal blockage they didn't even fully realize was there suddenly clearing away. Decisions that felt paralyzing become obvious. Circumstances that would have triggered anxiety barely register as obstacles anymore. The shift isn't just internal. The external world responds as if it's reading from a new script you've written. Opportunities appear that weren't there before. People respond to you differently. Your intuition becomes sharper, more reliable. And here's what makes it undeniable. These aren't people trying to convince themselves something changed. They're genuinely surprised by how differently they're experiencing their daily reality. Comment. It's already shifting, if you can sense this possibility opening up for you, because understanding the mechanics of this transformation is just the beginning of what becomes available when you truly grasp how consciousness and reality are far more interconnected than most people ever realize. And if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, that tells me something important about you. Most people hear about practices like this and dismiss them before ever giving them a chance. They're looking for something more complicated, assuming that real transformation must be difficult. But you're still here, which means you're someone who recognizes that the most powerful tools often come wrapped in simplicity. If what we explored here resonated with you, if something shifted in the way you see your own limitations and possibilities, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. I create content like this because I genuinely believe these insights need to reach people who are ready to use them. People like you who are willing to look beyond surface-level explanations and understand how consciousness actually works. By subscribing, you're making sure you catch the deeper explorations we do here, the kind of conversations that go places most content never touches. And leave me a comment saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know you made it all the way through." I read these comments, and there's something genuinely powerful about declaring your intention, even in a small way like this. It's another signal to your subconscious that you're serious about this shift, that you're not just passively consuming information, but actively engaging with transformation. If you found value in what we uncovered today, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps this video reach others who need to hear it, and honestly, it lets me know that what I'm sharing is landing the way I hope it does, as a real conversation between people who are on this path together. There's a video right here that takes this even deeper, exploring how to maintain this new frequency permanently and what happens when you truly integrate these practices into your daily life. Click and continue with me over there, because what we've covered today is just the beginning of what becomes possible when you understand how to consciously work with the informational field that surrounds you. I'll see you in the next one.